If you've ever bought a laptop or been thinking about it, there's a chance that you see all these weird numbers on the specification sheet and wondered what they mean. You've come to the right place, because this is the complete laptop specification guide for 2020. I'm going to break these numbers down as good as I can, and you are more than welcome to ask in the comments if there's something you want clarified. The first thing I want to address is that the price doesn't always match the performance of the laptop. I like to put these in 3 categories: budget, premium and gaming. And I know that there's more to it than this, but this is just an extreme simplification. Budget is your typical laptop. There's nothing fancy to see here. More or less everything here is mediocre, everything from the screen quality to the build quality. However, you get a lot of value for money here because the company can cut corners on the design and quality. So that means that the specs are usually decent for the price, at least. The premium laptops are, you guessed it, more expensive. These are the ultra thin and light laptops with a great design and whatnot. You will not get good value for money here, at least not in the performance department, because a lot more effort is done to improve things that can't be written on paper, like the quality of the keyboard, for example. What you do get here is the option for really high spec devices. Now, I wouldn't recommend buying one of these unless you have a lot of money to spend. Lastly, we have the gaming laptops. These are for gaming, and you should really not buy them if you are not going to game or do some very intensive work on them, like video editing or 3D modeling. The performance of these laptops is usually much better than the budget and sometimes also the premium laptops. However, they lack the battery life and portability that you get with the other laptops. This is especially true with the older gaming laptops, but some of the newer ones are catching up. With that out of the way, let's get to the actual specifications. Starting simple with RAM. This is basically the short-term memory of your computer. This is where all the running programs store information for quick access. Contrary to popular belief, this is not super important for the performance, and adding more will not continue to magically make your computer faster, unless there really isn't enough to start with. I would say that you can get away with 4 GB, but 8 is definitely recommended here. 4 is acceptable for really light work without major multitasking. If you find 2 similar computers and one has 8 GB and the other has 4, buy the one with 8. Some laptops also come with 12 or 16 GB of RAM, but this is only necessary for intensive workloads or gaming, or if you just want the absolute best, of course. Next on the list is the CPU. This is the brain of your computer and is therefore very, very important. There are 2 major CPU brands: Intel's Core and AMD Ryzen. Both of these brands are conveniently split into 4 performance groups: 3, 5, 7 and 9. 9 is almost never used in laptops, so forget that for a moment. But this means that an Intel Core i3 or AMD Ryzen 7 are in the low end and a Core i7 or Ryzen 7 are in the high end. It's probably important to mention that there are also other CPUs from the same companies, namely Intel's Celeron, Pentium and Atom processors, and AMD's A and E series. So I would stay away from these if possible, unless you have a very tight budget, in which case they'll probably do alright, but don't expect much from them. Now back to the good CPUs. There are of course older and newer versions of these, and you can identify from which generation they are by checking the first number after the performance group. For example, Intel Core i5 8250U. The 8 here indicates that it is an 8th gen CPU. Or another example, Ryzen 3 3700U. The 3 here indicates that it's an 3rd gen CPU. But don't let this fool you. The AMD Ryzen is more than a year newer than the Intel. So only use this number to compare CPUs in the same brand. And even then it's not always correct, but more on that later. Now, the next 3 numbers, the SKU, usually indicate the performance a little more precisely. For example, the i5 8265U has a high number when we 8250U and is 10 to 11% faster. This specific CPU is also a year newer just to make things more confusing, but remember that these 3 digits can only be used as a rule of thumb to check the performance, and again can only be used to compare in the same brand. If you want to compare CPUs directly, you can, for example, search i5 8250U versus Ryzen 5 3500U, and there are sites like User Benchmark, which can give you a quick overview of your performance, and Notebook Check, where there are much more detailed tests. These two CPUs in this example are very close. Another thing to look after on CPUs, and this can help quickly compare across brands, is the core count. Dual core means it has 2 cores, quad core means 4, hexa 6, octa 8, and so on. I would recommend at least 4 cores. This Acer Aspire 1, for example, has a Celeron dual core, which is really only useful for light tasks without much multitasking. This Aspire 5 has an i5 with 4 cores and is much better suited for heavier tasks and multitasking. There are also the gigahertz, more is better here, and together with the core count it can give you a rough idea of the performance, but it's only an estimate. But if you only intend on browsing social media, a dual core i3 or Celeron will do just fine, but if you're going to watch YouTube while working on PowerPoint, you will be better off with a quad-core i5 or Ryzen 5. The last thing is the letter you see at the end of the CPU's name. The U means that it's a laptop CPU, the Y will mean ultra low power on Intel, so not good performance, and H, that it's a high performance but still laptop CPU. And that's what you'll find in gaming laptops. This is the most complex and confusing category, so if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. Next is the GPU, and this is usually integrated in the CPU, so this will be quick and I'll just list things from best to worst. NVIDIA GeForce graphics, if you want to game, this is what you want to go for. The generation is the first of the 1 or 2 digits, but the 1660 and 2060 are from the same year. The 16s are just slightly worse. A Super or TI after the number means that it's better. Next we have Radeon RX graphics, not very common, but if you find it in a gaming laptop, it'll do just fine. For example, RX 590 or 560. NVIDIA MX is great because it enables you to do stuff like some light gaming or video editing, but it doesn't take much power. You'll find this in premium laptops. AMD Vega is usually found from 3 to 10, bigger number is better. Light gaming should be possible on 8 and 10. Intel Iris, not very common, but slightly better than the next ones. Intel UHD graphics, almost at the bottom. Now this is usually available as 620 or 600. Don't expect to do any gaming on this. It will, however, do just fine with all your typical social media browsing needs. Intel HD graphics and Radeon R, and these are old stuff and they work, but that's just about it. I'm not sure about the Radeon though, it might be better, but graphics aren't really super important unless you want to game on your laptop. Next is storage, and this might actually be more important than you think, because this can heavily influence the startup times of the laptop and also the overall speed. What you want to get is an SSD, a solid state drive. These are much faster than the older HDDs, hard disk drives, and can result in a faster system, but are usually smaller, and is why you can often find computers with both types of storage. There's also eMMC. This is slower than a normal SSD and offered in lower sizes. These are also found in phones, and while they are better than HDDs, I would take an SSD over an eMMC any day. As for the capacity, try to go with something more than 120 GB if you plan on installing lots of programs or storing photos and videos. Those are the main specs of a laptop, but there are more things to consider, for example the display, which I will go over now. Let's start with the resolution. On smaller screens, let's say 14 inches and less, it's okay to go with 720p or 768p, but on the larger displays, especially 17-inch, I would really recommend a Full HD 1080p display, but there's more to a screen than resolution. The technology is also important. If it doesn't state the technology, it's probably a TN or TFT panel. These are very common, but not very good in terms of color or viewing angles. IPS is what you want. The colors and viewing angles are much better here and can really improve the experience. Now it's time for some examples of laptops in different price ranges. I'm using Amazon here, but you should be able to find similar spec laptops in your local electronics store. Let's start with a cheap mail/social media laptop. An Acer Aspire 5 with a Ryzen 3 3200U for $350. This is probably the cheapest you could go and still get a good laptop. You have an AMD Ryzen 3, it's a dual core, 4GB of memory, a 128GB PCIe NVMe SSD. This means that it's faster than a normal SSD, but it's only really noticeable when copying files and such. You get a Full HD IPS panel, that's good. You also get a backlit keyboard, which is quite nice in this price range. There are other laptops, more expensive ones, like the Lenovo IdeaPad S340 with a Core i3, 8145U and 8GB of RAM. That one also has a 128GB SSD. There are also cheaper ones like the Aspire 1 with a Celeron N4000, but it's probably worth spending the little extra to get a better system. Now, an affordable all-round laptop would be the Acer Aspire 5 with the i5 8265U for about $500, but also available with an i5 10210U with an NVIDIA MX graphics for $650. This is a great laptop with lots of good size and options. You can get a Core i5 8265U, 8GB of RAM, a 256GB SSD, and again a 1080p display and a fingerprint reader, a backlit keyboard, and it's very cool. Another option is this Asus with a Ryzen 5 3500U for about $480 to $550. This is a quite similar laptop from Asus and with an AMD processor. Not much else to say here except I'm not entirely sure whether it has an IPS panel or not. This HP holds 16GB of RAM and a 10th gen i5. It does have a much worse display though, even though it is touchscreen. Now for the premium laptops. Here it's less about the actual specs and more about the look and features, but one of my favorites is the Asus ZenBook, and this one has a Core i7 8565U, 16GB of RAM. It comes with a 512GB SSD and a lot of fancy features, because that's what these laptops are all about in design, of course. I don't really recommend these types of laptops because they are very expensive for what you get. But if you have a lot of money to burn or something, then go for it, I guess. Now, the gaming laptops. Amazon's choice, it's not bad, and this proves it. The Asus TUF FX 505DT with a Ryzen 5 3550H. This is a high-performance CPU, NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650, the cheapest new GPU but still much better when integrated, 8GB of RAM, what you would expect at this price point, 1080p IPS display, but it's 120Hz, that means it updates what's on the screen faster, making for a smoother gaming experience. It only has a 256GB SSD though, which is quite small for gaming, because newer games tend to take up a lot of space. Well, that's it. Armed with your new knowledge, you can now choose the right laptop for you without being tricked into buying one of these high-performance cheap laptops. And again, this is a complex topic, so you're more than welcome to ask me any questions in the comments. But that was it for this video. If you enjoyed it, maybe like it to show your appreciation. And if you want to see more, you can subscribe. And if you click the little bell beside the button, you can also get notifications when I upload. But that's it. See you in the next one.